Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going down a career path y'all might not expect. We're going to be talking loss adjusting.
Oh, it's an interesting field. Most people, I don't think they realize just how important loss adjusting is to, well, the whole insurance world, really.
Yeah, it's one of those jobs that goes on behind the scenes, but it really does impact us all. And we're diving into some research here from RoleCatcher. It's a career platform, and we're going to break it all down. So if you're out there listening and you're picturing loss adjusters, just shuffling papers in a cubicle all day long, well, get ready to have your assumptions challenged.
Yeah, it's way more dynamic than that. Think of a loss adjuster like the detective of the insurance world.
I like that.
Yeah. They're the ones investigating claims to see if they're the real deal and then figuring out how much they're actually worth. We're talking, everything. Fender benders, house fires, even damaged artwork.
Wait, hold on. Damaged artwork. Now that sounds like it could get really interesting. So walk me through what one of these investigations actually, what does it look like?
Okay, so picture this. There's been a big fire in a building, and this building, it houses a private art collection. So a loss adjuster is called in. They're going to go to the site, they'll interview witnesses, and they'll work with experts to assess all the damage. They're literally, combing through probably charred debris, looking for any clues they can to determine, what caused the fire and just how bad the damage to the artwork is. It's really all about connecting the dots, just like a detective would.
Wow, that is way more intense than I ever pictured, honestly. So it's not just sitting around crunching numbers. It's about understanding, the story behind the claim.
Exactly. And sometimes that story, it involves a priceless Picasso that's been damaged.
Ah.
Talk about pressure, right?
Oh, yeah, you'd need nerves of steel for that, for sure. So what are the essential skills someone would need to become a successful loss adjuster? It sounds like it takes a very specific blend of analytical thinking, but then also people skills, right?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. You got to be able to analyze evidence, think critically, and really wrap your head around, insurance policies and can get pretty complicated. But at the same time, you're dealing with people who are going through some really, really tough situations. So empathy and patience, those are key for sure.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance between being a really good investigator, being sharp, but also being a compassionate human being.
Yeah.
You can't be a robot. You got to have that human touch.
Absolutely. It's about understanding that behind every single claim, there's a person or a family whose lives have been turned upside down. And it's the loss adjuster's job to kind of help them navigate that really, really tough time.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you've got the detective work, the empathy, but what about the education part of this? What does somebody need to do to even get their foot in the door as a loss adjuster?
Well, bachelor's degree is usually the standard. RoleCatcher, they highlight degrees in fields like, insurance or risk management as being particularly relevant.
Okay, so those make a lot of sense. But what about this risk management? I think for some people listening, that might not be a term they're familiar with. So can you break that down a little bit?
Sure. Risk management, it's basically it's the process of figuring out, assessing, and then controlling any potential losses. And since insurance, it's all about mitigating risk, it makes sense that it's a good fit for, aspiring loss adjusters.
So understanding how businesses and individuals are protecting themselves from financial loss is really, really important in this field.
Exactly. And it's not just about knowing the theory, you have to apply it, apply that knowledge to these real life situations, which kind of brings us back to those analytical and investigative skills that we were talking about.
It's like the difference between reading about how an engine works
Yeah.
and then actually getting under the hood and taking it apart.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of getting ahead, let's talk about certifications for a second. Specifically, the Chartered Loss Adjuster certification, the CLA.
Ah, yes, the CLA. I was wondering when that would come up. What's the big deal with this certification?
Well, it's really the big one. It's globally recognized, and it shows that you have, a high level of expertise in the field. It's like the gold standard for loss adjusters.
Okay, so if you're serious about a career in loss adjusting, getting that CLA, that's kind of a no-brainer.
It's definitely a smart move. It shows employers, that you're dedicated to this, that you're committed to professional development, that you're all in, basically.
It's like leveling up in your career, right?
Yeah.
You gain new skills, more credibility, new opportunities open up.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Would you want a surgeon operating on you who, hasn't earned their board certification?
That's a scary thought. Okay, so we've covered the basic skills, how important education and certifications are, but what about the actual day-to-day stuff? What's it actually like to be a loss adjuster? What are some of the pros and cons someone might expect if they go down this career path?
Well, one of the best parts of the job is you get to be like a real life detective. I mean, you're solving puzzles, you're uncovering the truth behind insurance claims. Every day is different. You really never know what kind of fascinating cases might come across your desk.
That does sound intriguing, but I'm guessing it can't all be like thrilling investigations and, exciting discoveries. What about the downsides? What are some of the challenges that someone who's thinking about this career, what should they be aware of?
Well, one of the hardest parts is probably the emotional toll. I mean, you're interacting with people who are going through some really, really tough times. They might have lost their homes, businesses, even loved ones. And it takes a special kind of person to handle that kind of, emotional weight, but also remain objective and professional.
Yeah, it's like you're a therapist and a detective all rolled into one. You know, it takes a certain kind of person to be able to handle that,
Yeah.
that level of, I don't know, resilience, I guess you'd call it, to handle those intense simulations.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And on top of that, the emotional demands, the hours can be long, and the schedule, well, let's just say it can be unpredictable. You could be called out to an emergency at any time, so evenings, weekends, holidays even, it's all fair game sometimes.
So yeah, work-life balance, that could be a real struggle in this field, for sure.
Yeah.
It's not your typical 9 to 5 office job, that's for sure.
You got it. And speaking of challenges, let's not forget about everyone's favorite paperwork.
Ooh, yes. The paperwork, there's always paperwork, isn't there?
Part of the job. Loss adjusters, they have to be meticulous record keepers. So they're writing up detailed reports, they're documenting all the evidence, and making sure, of course, that everything's on the up and up, with the legal and the company standards.
But so for someone listening who's thinking, man, I hate paperwork, but I love a good mystery, loss adjusting, that might not be the best fit.
It might not be the best fit, no. You got to have a certain, I don't know, like a tolerance, I guess, for those kinds of administrative tasks in this role. It's not all, car chases and uncovering insurance fraud, although I'm sure those moments, they happen too.
That brings us to another point, which is career progression. Let's say someone's up for this challenge, paperwork and all. What does the career ladder actually look like in this field?
Well, RoleCatcher, they lay out a pretty clear path. So you usually start as a trainee, which makes sense, right? You're learning the ropes from the more experienced loss adjusters. It's a lot of hands-on experience, shadowing the seasoned pros and slowly taking on more and more responsibility as you go.
So it's like an apprenticeship. You're learning by doing. You're making mistakes, but hopefully in a safe environment. You're building up your skills with a mentor kind of guiding you along the way.
Exactly. And then once you've proven yourself, once you're not a trainee anymore, you can move up to being a full-fledged loss adjuster. You're managing your own cases, making decisions on your own.
So more autonomy, higher stakes, and probably some more, exciting cases, right?
Absolutely. And then as you get more experience, you become more of an expert. You might even end up handling claims involving super high value items or really complex investigations. Think back to what we were talking about before, assessing a damaged Picasso, or maybe you're investigating potential insurance fraud, that kind of thing. Those are the kinds of cases that those seasoned loss adjusters, those are the ones who get called in for that.
Man, the pressure. What comes after being a loss adjuster? Can you even go further than that?
Oh, absolutely. If you've got that leadership, that strategic mind, you could end up becoming a senior loss adjuster. Then you're overseeing a whole team of adjusters. You're giving guidance. You're mentoring the new recruits.
So you're not just like solving the cases anymore. You're actually shaping the future, like the next generation of loss adjusters coming up.
That's a really good way to put it. And you might be handling, some of the more complex claims, the ones involving, like we said, the really high value items, tons of property damage, or even like those potential fraudulent activities.
And then for those who, they like to climb that corporate ladder, it could even lead to becoming a loss adjuster manager.
You got it. So at that level, you're running the whole show, the entire loss adjusting department. You're setting goals, managing budgets, making sure everyone's following all the rules, all the industry regulations.
Wow, that is a high impact role.
Yeah.
You're like the captain of the ship, navigating the sometimes choppy waters of the insurance industry, making sure everything runs smoothly.
I like that. That's a great way to put it. And all along the way, whether you're managing a team or you're doing your own thing, working independently, you could also decide to specialize in a particular area, something that really speaks to you, that you really enjoy.
Oh, that's right. You don't have to be like a jack of all trades in this field. You can really find your niche, so to speak.
Yeah. What are some examples of like specializations? Well, you could do something like marine claims, focusing on, ships and cargo, Or maybe you're a real art buff, you love antiques, you could specialize in assessing, damaged artwork. You could even focus on cybersecurity investigations, which is a really, really hot area in insurance these days. It's really growing.
That's so cool. You could combine a love of like art or technology
Hmm.
with, your investigative skills. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine that focusing on a specialty like that can also lead to, higher earning potential as well.
That's right. The more, I don't know, how do I put it? The more unique your skills and knowledge, the more valuable you are, obviously, to employers, and the more money you can make.
Supply and demand, right. The more specialized you are, well, there's not as many people who can do what you do, so you're in high demand.
Exactly. And because the insurance industry, I mean, it's huge, right? And it's always changing. There's always a need for good loss adjusters, which also usually means pretty decent job security.
So, okay, got job security, possible advancement, even a chance to be like, I don't know, a high-stakes art detective. That's pretty good. But I'm guessing it's not like you just walk into a job like this, right? What's RoleCatcher have to say about, like, actually getting into loss adjusting?
Well, it's like most other careers, it's all about getting your foot in the door. So RoleCatcher, they suggest looking for maybe internships or even those entry-level jobs at insurance companies or loss-adjusting firms.
So even if it's not your dream job right away, you're saying just getting that experience, getting started, it's really important.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about, building up that resume, making those connections, networking. And while you're doing that, while you're getting that hands-on experience, it's a good time to, start working on those certifications like we talked about, like the CLA.
Yeah, because like we said before, those certifications, they can really, really give you a leg up, especially when the job market's really competitive.
Yeah.
It just shows employers that you're serious, that you're committed to, your professional development, that kind of thing.
It says, I'm not just here for the paycheck. I'm here to learn and grow.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So, okay, for someone listening who is thinking, this all sounds amazing, where do I even start? What would you tell them? What's one piece of advice you'd give?
I'd say if you're really interested in this, if it speaks to you, don't be afraid to reach out to people who are already doing this, who are loss adjusters. Networking is so important.
It's all about making those connections, learning from the people who are already out there doing it.
Exactly. Connect with loss adjusters on LinkedIn. See if there are any industry events you can go to, even just informational interviews. Those can be so helpful.
Yeah, just to get a feel for what it's actually like day to day and see if it's really a good fit, for your personality, for what you're interested in.
Exactly. And remember, being a loss adjuster, it's a career where you can make a real difference in people's lives. You get to use your brain, solve these puzzles, these complex problems, and you have the chance to really keep learning and growing. And it's a dynamic industry. There's always something new.
Yeah, it's a career that really does require, your head and your heart. It's that intellectual curiosity, but it's also that empathy and
Yeah.
wanting to make things right.
Yeah.
That commitment to fairness. And who knows, you might just discover a passion for insurance claims, the whole world of investigations.
You just never know what amazing cases are out there waiting.
That is a perfect note to end on. Thanks so much for joining us today on this deep dive into whole world of loss adjusting. This has been really cool. We hope you found it helpful, insightful, all that good stuff. And for everyone listening, remember, stay curious, keep learning, and we will see you on the next deep dive.